scaling is not at the forefront of your brain. For me, my thing was like, how do I make women more confident?
My story being labeled as a successful exit, I actually don't think it was a successful exit, which I'll talk to you guys about, because there's people out here who've worked so hard and are about to get nothing.
You should be able to learn from, at minimum, me and Rachel's mistakes, and we are here to be transparent.
Guiding this powerful conversation is Baltimore's own brow queen, L'Oreal Yates. Take it away, L'Oreal.
Hey, y'all. I am so happy to be here. Okay. Melissa.
Hey, girl, hey.
When Chris and Janine asked me to lead this panel, I was so excited. I listened to your How I Built This about a year after I opened my first location. So this is like kind of fangirlish, like full circle for me. So I'm very happy to be here. So thank
I'm so
you.
happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. Chris, Janine, Monique, Melvin, I love y'all.
All right, I guess we'll jump right in. Both of you entered the beauty space with bold ideas that challenged what was already on shelves. What was the moment or series of moments that made you say, I'm going to build something myself? And did you identify the unique need your brand was meant to fill? I'll start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, it is. Okay, sorry. I grew up with severe acne and was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. So I just grew up really uncomfortable with my physical appearance. And despite my parents being professionals, I come from a family of lawyers, I just had it in my mind that I wanted to become an esthetician. My mom would take me to dermatologists in California, and California was a little bit ahead of the industry. I'm 43, so this is like, I'm maybe 15 years old at the time, and my derm had an esthetician. And I just loved going in this room with so many bells and whistles, all these creams and machines that would come out, having me feel a little bit better about myself and a little bit more confident to face a cruel high school world of a lot of bullies. So fast forward, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, finished college, went straight to esthetician school, and immediately just noticed that the industry was not diverse at all. Like, despite Charlotte being a very diverse population, it was really predominantly Caucasian teachers, Caucasian students. And when I would bring my friends and family in to get services, a lot of them had deeper skin tones, and it was always like, don't do this and don't do that. You're gonna burn them. And I'm like, well, how do we solve their problems if we really can't do anything but massage their face? Like, there has to be better solutions than this. So I started really taking it upon myself to learn. I'm like, I want to be well-rounded, and most importantly, I want to make the people I love feel good about their appearance. So I would order like dermatology books for ethnic skin, and one of the first books put out by a famous dermatologist named Dr. Susan Taylor, I ordered, and ended up getting my first job working for a chiropractor who didn't know what the hell he was doing. What the heck he was doing, excuse me, Monique. And it was like he put in business in an office park with no visible sign, no marketing budget, but he had happened to buy one of the few lasers on the market that was safe for laser hair removal for deeper skin tones. It was like safe for all skin tones, which was really rare. And so I had ingrown hairs on my bikini, got great results, brought some of my friends in, and was blessed to take some amazing before and after pictures. And one of them was one of my friends who was a man with severe ingrown hairs on his beard line, and just like doing laser hair removal, it cleared up his dark marks, got rid of the ingrown hairs. And I was like, gosh, I'm making $12 an hour. We have no clients. I have a great commission structure, but I don't have any commission to make with no clients. And so I decided to make a before and after flyer, and I was like, where are all the men at? They're at barbershops. So it took a lot of, I would say, a lot of confidence, which I just forced myself to have, to go into all these barbershops. And it started to work and started to get some clients. And then I would go around to hair salons. And then the chiropractor was like, I think you kind of like have something here. I'm willing to give you a couple $1,000s to market. And so I'd heard these radio ads on like the top 40 stations from a laser hair removal place, obviously not specializing in diverse skin tones. So wrote out this commercial that was like, are you tired of plucking annoying like chin hairs, and are they leaving dark marks behind? And I wrote this commercial myself, and we put it on an R&B station because I was like, I think that there's an opportunity of just, there's a lot of disparities in this community of not really catering to the needs of diverse skin tones. And the phone started blowing up, and just felt like, despite me not having a diverse skin tone, I just felt like it was my calling, which people had a hard time with, from all different aspects. I had kind of like the white community, just from either being ignorant or racist, just being like, what are you doing? And then, I had the black community being like, at times, like, this isn't your place. And I just felt like I was just so focused on, I really wanted to improve the lives of others and just kind of stepped out on faith, and it worked.
Yeah, look at you now.
Okay, so scaling a business is one thing, but scaling well is another. When you moved from startup mode into national growth, what were the growing pains that no one could prepare you for? What systems, shifts, or sacrifices were necessary to take your brand to the next level?
Ooh, straight into scaling. Well, I'll start off with a little bit of my background so that you understand what my challenges were for scaling and why they were relevant. So I started my career on Wall Street. I went to FAMU. I was literally following the American dream. You go to school, you get a good job, and then you get a house and get married and all of those things. I got to Wall Street and realized I didn't like it, that it wasn't for me. I still stayed for 4 years because I didn't have any money. But I was so frustrated with the beauty industry and its lack of diversity, its excessive amounts of chemicals, this idea that beauty looks like one thing, and typically that one thing did not include Black women in our in our most natural state. And while I have always been a confident woman in terms of my looks or even my abilities, I knew that that wasn't true for many of my friends, many of my nieces. And I'm like, I know you lying if you think that my niece is going to grow up thinking that she is unattractive just because she's dark skinned. Or you gotta be kidding me. One of my other nieces is going to think that she will never have a boyfriend because her hair is short. So I hated the beauty industry. I didn't start the Lip Bar because I loved the beauty industry. It's so far from it. I just learned how to do my makeup 2 weeks ago, y'all. And I'm very proud of that, by the way. But I started it because I was just so frustrated with the beauty industry. And when you start a business steeped in your purpose, like Monique was saying earlier, you're not necessarily thinking about how to scale. Scaling is not at the forefront of your brain. You're actually thinking about, how do I serve my customers? How do I change their lives? For me, my thing was how do I make women more confident? How do I make women believe in themselves? How do I make women understand that they don't have to follow someone else's beauty playbook, that their playbook is enough and that they can write their own rules? And so I started the business in such a scrappy way, literally making lipstick in my kitchen, not paying myself, didn't have any real employees. I built a Lip Bar truck to go on tour because we didn't have distribution. I did all of the things, and I was very comfortable doing all the things. And I think that's something that Black women have in common. We literally know that no one is coming to save us. And because of that understanding, we're like, okay, I'll do it. I'll wear all the hats. I'll finance it myself. I will make the product, ship the orders, post on social media, and be the face. And I did that for many years. The Lip Bar is 13 years old, y'all. I know, girl, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah, the Lip Bar is 13 years old, and for the first 6 years of the business, we were not even a real business. And so when we talk about scale, I gave you guys all of that background because my issue with scaling is that I was thinking too small. My issue with scaling is that I didn't know that I could even have help. I didn't know that I could hire people. I didn't know that I could outsource. I didn't know that I could fundraise. I didn't know that, starting off that I should be hiring people who were smarter than me. Those were all of the challenges that I encountered in scaling. And it wasn't until we were probably 7 years in business that I was like, oh, wait, this is a real business. Because like Jermaine said earlier, like I love that these conversations happen and like they're brunches and there's so much education, and women are starting businesses at faster rates than any other group, specifically Black women, faster than any other group in this country. But in 2011, when I was working on the Lit Bar, entrepreneurship was not that popular. Like, I was an anomaly. When I quit my job on Wall Street, my mom was like, who's going to pay your bills? And I was like, me, hopefully, So it's like, hopefully. So my challenge with scaling was that I stayed too small too long. And so I say that to you all, in all honesty. I haven't read a single question that you guys sent me, but my goal is to be as transparent as possible so that you guys can sort of say, okay, how do I not make the mistakes that Melissa made? Like, your goal should be to go further and faster than I did. Now, y'all probably not gonna catch up to Monique. I'm not gonna hold you up. But, because beast mode, okay? But you should be able to learn from, at minimum, me and Rachel's mistakes. And we are here to be transparent and to pour into you guys as much as we can.
Can I add something to that? I think one thing that I hear a lot is about currently the advice is to build a business initially with the exit in mind. And I feel like that was not mine and Melissa's story at all. And I feel like it's kind of a conundrum because, yes, we made so many costly mistakes because we weren't thinking about the exit. We were just thinking about changing lives and making a great product. I wasn't thinking about product architecture and IP and hiring people smarter than me. And it's like, I'm always torn between, gosh, if I was really thinking about the end game, because despite my story being labeled as a successful exit, I actually don't think it was a successful exit, which I'll talk to you guys about. Yes, it was like, if I had really thought about the exit, maybe I would have had a more successful story. However, if I hadn't been so caught up in just making great, efficacious products, I hadn't exit at all. So, 20 years ago when I started my business, it was like practically just post MySpace era. I was like, this was not Instagram. This was not, podcast era where you're just getting the game from everybody. So it's an interesting time for sure. And I personally recommend to everybody, don't start a business because you want to sell it. Start a business because you feel like you have something that can change people's lives and you're passionate about doing the work, to make that happen.
Where's Chris? Is he sitting here? Chris did this on purpose because he knew I needed to hear these things. Rachel, your brand made it into millions of homes, and then you made the decision to step your way through said successful exit. What emotional and strategic layers went into making that decision? And how do you reconcile the identity of being a founder with the moment you hand over your company?
Yes, so this isn't something that I really have talked about on my platform, but, I started my business in 2006, so I'm like a real OG at this. But in 2019, our company was doing roughly about $10 million in sales. Again, I wasn't thinking anything about sales and raising money. I was blessed to be profitable and, blessed to be living a decent life and be happy, and just, had started having people, because this is what happens, kind of put their claws into you and say, oh, when you reach these type of sales, that's the thing to do. You go raise money and you take money for yourself. And like, that's just what you do when you're successful. And I think because I had a lot of chips on my shoulder, growing up being bullied, growing up not feeling confident about the skin I was in, then having all these naysayers, saying that, why would I start a company like this when I didn't look like my customer? I felt like even my parents, my stepdad who raised me, like I love him, but he was really negative about me starting this business. And anytime he would hear that it was doing well, he'd be like, well, then you just need to sell it. And so I think I ended up selling a majority stake and taking, 8 figures for myself. It wasn't like 99 million, it was a lower 8 figures, but that's life-changing money. I think it was like to prove something to people, and that was not the right reason to do it. And essentially, I ended up selling control of my company, which was the worst thing I could have ever done. If you're going to sell your company and you're gonna sell control, you wanna sell so much that you really don't care what happens. Like, sell 90%. I sold, I think, 52%, which that doesn't make sense. I also sold it to people who had never been in the beauty industry before. You want to sell to people who know what they're doing, especially when you still have skin in the game, especially when you still own a percentage. You want to look at their resume and be like, okay, I'm betting on you because you've done this successfully multiple times. And from there on out, it really was a nightmare. And I stepped away 2 years ago. I resigned as CEO because I felt like I'd spent 3-4 years trying to save my company, and it just, like, my voice didn't matter. These people didn't care what I had to say. It was just started to be a really toxic situation for me. And the company did finally sell this year 100%, so I have no ownership in it. And it was, to me, I was just so happy it didn't go under, because we're in a time right now where brands are closing left and right. You see these brands that you think are doing so well, and then all of a sudden they're just gone, And so it's like, on one hand, there was some moments where I probably could have had $100 million plus exits. And so Melissa might always tell me, you're lucky you got what you got, because there's people out here who've worked so hard and are about to get nothing. So it's like, on one hand, it's like, it's good I took the deal I got, but on the other hand, it definitely wasn't the exit I really think it deserved, and it was due to some poor decision making on my side, because I had some chips on my shoulder and I had some self-esteem issues that I needed to work out.
Thank you. That was very, very honest. Like, I got chills a little bit.
Melissa, the Lip Bar has not only built a beauty brand, it's created a movement rooted in accessibility, style, and inclusion. How have you navigated staying innovative and edgy in an industry that often tries to put beauty into a box, which we know you hate, especially as your brand grows into larger mainstream markets?
Well, I think that's a part of our DNA. So when the Lip Bar first launched, I was just telling someone this yesterday, we actually didn't have a single red or new lip color. We only had the outlandish colors. We launched with 12 shades of chaos, okay? I'm talking about, it was blue lipstick. I think we had 2 different blue lipsticks, actually. It was blue lipstick, green lipstick, mustard lipstick, purple. We had the craziest colors, and it was very intentional. And yes, I knew that they weren't that wearable, but the goal was to make a statement. And when you're launching in a very competitive category, and beauty, specifically color cosmetics, is so saturated, it's insane competing in that category, because you're up against brands that they spend billions of dollars, essentially. Like, the beauty industry as a whole spends billions of dollars on marketing every single year. And then when you think about it, it's like, well, why? Why are they spending so much money on marketing? And if we're gonna be honest, it's because no one actually needs makeup. It's not hair care. You have to wash your hair. It's not skincare. You have to wash your face. No one actually needs makeup. And so the beauty industry is constantly convincing people that they aren't good enough, that they need to look a certain way, that they need to cover up dark circles, that they need to cover up acne marks, that they need to literally, it's about covering up. And so I wanted to make a statement that said, I know what these companies typically tell you, and I am giving you permission to show up wholly as yourself, to do something brave, to be brave, to step outside of the box. Like, don't allow the world, the media, the beauty industry, that man to control you and conform, your decisions on beauty. And so I think because that's how we started, it's always been a part of how we think. We're always like, okay, well, just because you are getting older, that does not mean you age out of beauty, for instance. So we did a big ageism campaign. We've launched crazy colors. We've launched interesting textures. But I think more than anything, product aside, it's always been about the marketing message. And that marketing message has always been that you are enough. We have a small store downtown Detroit. And on the front door, it says, the Lip Bar, where you are enough, because we're constantly trying to ingrain that idea in our customers' minds. Because at the end of the day, trends change, and they will continue to change. This is hot today. It won't be hot in 6 weeks. It might even move faster now with social media. But we can't even afford to chase trends, if I'm gonna be honest. We can't produce products that fast. We don't have enough people to chase trends in that way. So we have to be so authentic and so deeply rooted in who we are, who we're serving, what our why is, and that is what we innovate around. And I think that is why we have remained relevant. That is why we have remained in business. Because to Rachel's point, a lot of my competitors literally went out of business last year. If you go, I know we're all mad at Target, and that's okay, but if you go in Target and you look at us, the Lip Bar is the only constant in the multicultural makeup section since we launched. They have launched probably 8 brands next to us. Every single one of them have exited. Not because they don't like Black people, but because they weren't performing, because it was not selling. It is the only brand that has remained since, 2017, 2018, when we launched in that section. And it's because, we do things like call our customers. We're like, what do you want from us? What do you need from us? What are we doing right? How did you find us? How can we improve? And I think it's that customer mindedness, that customer obsession, and this idea that we don't have to follow the trend in order to deliver, which has allowed us to remain.
All right. Janine gave me so many good questions, but they're giving me a little TikTok right now. They're trying to send us out of here. He said, I have 1 minute left. Okay, so Rachel, really quickly. This event is rooted in the idea that even the hardest parts of our stories serve a purpose, and you've shared a lot of that already. What's one chapter of your journey outside of the selling of the company that was a closed door, but later turned out to be everything that shaped your strength or shifted your strategy?
Probably Crappy Men. Had a big attraction for really not great men, and ended up a single mom with my daughter and took her home from the hospital by myself, and it was the hardest and best thing that ever happened to me. From that point on, I was stuck in the house every night at 8 o'clock, and I ended up taking to Instagram, and my marketing strategy was to DM every single major makeup artist and send them my products, and it worked, and it was a huge way I ended up growing our social channel. So it's interesting how things happen.
It always is, and we don't even realize it, just like how I'm sitting here with you guys getting all these little gems that I didn't know that I needed. They're rushing me. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for being brave enough to create space, to share space, to take up space, and to, again, give us these little gems today. I appreciate it very, very much, and I'm sure everyone else does too.
put it on the floor.